and taken to court by the bank. He was to remain in jail until he could pay the bank back, which wasn't going to happen anytime soon. Meanwhile, his dad had made a bet with another dangerous gang, using fake documents of a house that didn't exist. He would win and get the money, but he didn't. He ran away, but they chased after him. He ran to where his wife and son were, thinking the gang had lost him. But they suddenly showed up and beat him to a pulp. Afterward, they took his wife and son. Jace's father, in pains, begged them to let his family go, but they ignored him and took them. With no one to treat his fractured elbow, broken rib, and nose, his wounds got infected. No one helped him. Barely a week later, he died. Hi. My name's Tasha, but everyone calls me Tash, so we'll stick to that. I met my ex-husband Jace at a club where I used to work. My parents had died when I was only 18, leaving just my brother and I in our small house. My brother was 2 years older. He had to drop out from college and get a job. It wasn't a well-paying job, so I could tell that he was struggling. I'd just finished high school. I went around searching for a job. I didn't want to settle for a job with a meager salary. I wanted a job that could help me go through college without having to bother my brother. I found a club that was in need of servers. The salary was included, and believe me, it was a lot. I thought about it. I would take it, but one thing feared me: my brother's opinion. I wasn't sure if he'd let me work at a club. I knew I had to discuss it with him first. Well, just as I'd feared, he flared up. It took a whole lot of promises and pleading before he eventually agreed. He made me swear on his life to leave the job if anyone tries to be naughty with me, and I did. Afterward, I went to apply for the job. I was taken. My salary was going to be paid bi-weekly. I was glad to start the job. It was different from what I'd expected. Just like my brother, I'd also feared being harassed by the customers, but they were different. The club had rules and made sure anyone who came in obeyed them. We, the servers, only did our job. There were strippers and others who took care of the men who needed care, so servers were safe. I enjoyed the job. I was able to get myself into college, and I had enough time to attend classes because I only worked at night. An unfortunate incident happened one night, and that was how I met Jace. After working that night, I grabbed my bag to leave. As I stood outside waiting for my ride, a man walked out of the club and approached me, asking how much I was going to charge for a night. I was offended, but I wasn't disrespectful. I politely told him I wasn't a call girl. However, in a split second, he suddenly became violent and grabbed my hand. I tried to free myself, but I couldn't. Just in time, Jace arrived and helped me, telling the man to leave. He did walk away, staggering. Jace asked if I was okay, and I replied that I was. He waited for me until my ride came. I thanked him before getting in, and he didn't go back into the club until the car was out of sight. I soon noticed that he was a regular, and every night, he would wait for me to get a drive before leaving. We became super close over the next few months, and of course, feelings slid in. We didn't date until I was almost 20. We dated for a very long time, about 3 years, before I finally introduced him to my brother. Luckily, my brother thought he was good, so he accepted him. I continued working at the club until I finished college. I did great, and my brother was immensely proud of me. Fortunately, the first company that I applied for a job immediately picked me. The pay was 3 times higher than that of the club, so I quit the server job and took the new one. My brother was also doing well and planning his wedding with his fiancée, who really liked me just how I liked her. Anyway, after his wedding, Jace proposed to me. I agreed. I was 23 then and was surely ready to start a family. Jace wasn't working in a big company, and that seemed to worry him. I promised to cover it all up and told him not to worry. Everything was going smoothly. He introduced me to his family, and they seemed to like me, his younger brother especially. A year and 6 months into our marriage, I had our first set of children, which were triplet, 2 girls and a boy. We were all thrown into excitement. I spent a few weeks at the hospital before I finally returned home. Time passed, and our kids clocked 3. On their birthday, we were all talking about ourselves when I revealed that I'd once worked at a club. Everyone's countenance immediately changed.
You mean you used to work as a harlot?
Excuse me? I only worked as a server. I was never a harlot. That's disrespectful, don't you think?
He's right, actually. You can't say you didn't get involved in prostitution while at it. It's a club, dear. You don't have to lie to us.
I was offended by their words. I turned to Jace and he cleared his throat.
Everyone, can we just drop it? Let's talk about something else.
It wasn't what I'd expected from him, but since they agreed and changed the topic, I was fine. I thought it would all end there, but they all began to taunt me with it after that day. I never responded, but I didn't feel good about it. Jace wasn't even helping matters. Rather than shun them, he would simply switch topics. I had to stop visiting them because of that. A few weeks later, they suddenly showed up in front of our house with bags and boxes. What is this? Why are you guys here with all of this? When they explained to me, my heart was torn. Apparently, my father-in-law had gambled with a dangerous gang at a club and had placed a bet with the documents of his house. He'd lost to them, and his house was taken. They had nowhere to go, except our house. I didn't think it was a great idea, but I allowed them in at least. When Jace returned, I talked to him about renting a house for them, as I didn't like the idea of them staying at ours, but he gave an excuse that he didn't have any money. I was forced to let them stay. With them in the house, I had more work. They were so lazy and demanding. Before leaving for work, I had to cook them food. When I return, I would clean the whole house, do the dishes, and even their laundry. I managed to endure all of that. If Jace didn't have enough money, I would save up and assist him in getting a house. I was shocked when he suddenly quit his job. His excuse?
My parents want me to stay home with them. They think it's better if you work alone.
I was livid. Are you a fool? How can you let them control your life? Huh? Seeing his nonchalant response, I stormed to the living room and demanded from his family why they asked him to stop working.
You earn enough to feed us all. It's better to leave it all to you than for him to keep embarrassing himself with his little salary.
We know your former customers still patronize you and pay you well enough. I mean, everyone knows that harlots are rich.
I couldn't believe them. I was so close to tears, so I left, in order not to say anything hurtful unintentionally. I was going to endure it all until I heard my mother-in-law looking down on my daughters.
You girls need to grow up quickly. You need to bring in money like your prostitute mother. I'm very sure she's going to introduce you to her profession.
I know what prostitutes are. My mom is not a prostitute. She works for her money.
My eyes watered. I felt so bad and good at the same time. Well, good that my daughter defended me. I knew I needed to take action. Firstly, I needed to get my kids out of there. I contacted my brother and his wife and told them about everything. My brother was shocked and angry and wanted to confront them, but I refused. I needed to handle it myself. I asked him to only request for them to be with him for a month. Of course, my husband and his family were happy, because that would mean less mouth to feed and more for them. After doing that, I took out my money from our card and stashed it up in a safe in my brother's house. I also sold the house without their knowledge. I'd bought it myself, luckily. I asked the new owner to come claim it in a month. With the money, I got us another house, but in a different country. I was still in the house with Jace and his family, but I wasn't feeding them regularly anymore. In fact, we only ate once a day. Not me, though. I ate at the office and also at my brother's. When they complained about hunger, I told them the company was delaying my payment, and I'd used part of my savings to make half payment for the house I wanted to get them.
So what do? We're starving.
Jace, take a loan. Use the cars as collateral. Once I get my payment and profit from an investment I made, I'll pay the loan back. Foolishly, he agreed. I made him take a very huge amount. They spent the money lavishly as usual. Meanwhile, I was making my final plan. 2 weeks later, I made an announcement. I'll be getting my huge, long-awaited profit in 2 days. Let's go celebrate at the club. Darling, you'll be paying for our drinks. I'm gonna repay everything. They foolishly trusted me. Together, we went to the club. Once I got them drunk, I brought out the divorce document I'd prepared. In the document, it was also included that Jace wouldn't get custody of our kids. I'd made that possible by proving that he was jobless and had no plans for a future. He signed it unknowingly. Afterward, I left the club. I hurried over to my lawyer, and the divorce was finalized. My flight tickets were already booked for 3 a.m. I took my kids and headed to the airport. By 5 a.m., we were in our new home in a new country. As for Jace and his family, they had it rough. He looked for I and the kids, but my brother gave him a copy of the document he signed. He was still mad over that when the new owner of the house kicked them out a week later. The bank also came and took the cars after Jace didn't meet up with the payment, 2 weeks later. He and his family took to the streets and made a home there. The next week, he was arrested and taken to court by the bank. He was to remain in jail until he could pay the bank back, which wasn't going to happen anytime soon. Meanwhile, his dad had made a bet with another dangerous gang, using fake documents of a house that didn't exist. He would win and get the money, but he didn't. He ran away, but they chased after him. He ran to where his wife and son were, thinking the gang had lost him. But they suddenly showed up and beat him to a pulp. Afterward, they took his wife and son.
When you give us a house, or the money equivalent to a house, you can come get them.
Jace's father, in pains, begged them to let his family go, but they ignored him and took them. With no one to treat his fractured elbow, broken rib, and nose, his wounds got infected. No one helped him. Barely a week later, he died. It's been over 5 years. I'm living happily with my kids. My brother and his family had also relocated to the country we're in. He plays the role of a father in the lives of my kids. I'm working very hard. Fortunately, my kids never ask about their father or his family. Perhaps the kids also know they're assholes. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.